Hello and welcome to the 38 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Prospect Pod. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Want to remind everyone to get ready for a new season of fishing fun with Academy Sports and Outdoors. Reel in the best gear at low prices every day. Plus, Academy offers easy ways to shop and save time like free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup on academy.com orders.
One question for you, Coach
Yes,
Runes.
yes.
Are you reeling in the gears, stowing away the time? That's what I want to know.
That's got to be a musical lyric, Fitzy.
Oh,
Is that what you
God,
just did
you're
there?
killing me, Runes. You're
I
killing
don't
me.
know Shakespeare.
You're
What did I
breaking my
mess up
heart.
today?
You don't know Steely Dan. You don't know Shakespeare. What do you know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I told Coach Farron, our good friend Mike Farron, that I thought Julius Caesar was a left-handed reliever in Conference USA in the 90s, but that apparently is not true. Seif, don't take the bait. He's a Roman emperor from of some repute, apparently. So
I will not take the bait.
yes, don't do it. As you listeners can tell, I'm joined by the great Aaron J. Fitt and the great the director of credibility at D1Baseball, David Goliath Seifert. Good to see you guys. Boys, we're 4 weeks in, and so it's the month of March. We want to do a prospect pod. We've got some data points. We've learned some things. I've got two topics for us. I want to talk about risers. It feels like this is a year we've got some risers. Like it's been more volatile. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's been more volatile than normal. And then also we've got two phylums. If I could use the BA term, the Baseball America term, Ibid, John Manuel, we've got two groups that have really asserted themselves.
That's a Clint Longnecker favorite too. Phylum. Old pal.
Yeah.
Listen, dedicated listener of the pod, Clint Longnecker.
Yes.
Shout out to Clint.
Yeah, we know Clint is listening, and Clint, you are an all-time great, no question. Very good, Seif. So let's start with risers. Who's your favorite riser so far?
Man, I think the bulk of the risers has taken place in Knoxville, yeah. And I often get accused of being a volunteer super fan, which I am. I mean, admittedly so. But I think you need to start with Liam Doyle, left-handed pitcher, and then Gavin Killen, their second baseman who could play shortstop. Those two especially have just come out storming.
Fitzy, what say you? Who are your risers?
That's a great place to start. You know, I had this discussion with Seif earlier today. Zach Root is high on my risers board, and I don't know if I'm ahead of the industry consensus on this one. If I'm out over my skis a little bit, but I just think he's already really good, and I think he's just taken another jump. And I thought, you know, Seif had some numbers in his piece today in the scouting trail that kind of attest to how much better his breaking stuff has gotten. Because last year, I mean, in the past, and he still considers his changeup to be his best secondary pitch, and maybe it's a really good pitch, but he's developed what he calls a slutter, kind of a slider cutter hybrid, like a hard, short, tight slider in that high 80s range. And he's also got the bigger breaking ball, and those are both getting, you know, whiff rates in the 95th, 99th percentile. So all of a sudden, if we've got two different knockout breaking balls, plus he's got a plus changeup, and I think it's a, you know, I guess we have to readjust our velocity or what's an average fastball anymore. I don't know. It used to be I would call this a plus fastball, 92, 95, touch of 6. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's, I don't know. I mean, like, is that just an average fastball in this day? I don't know. It's a good fastball. It certainly plays. He's left-handed. He's athletic. A little bit of funk there, but I think he's really good. So Zach Root at Arkansas is kind of my personal riser. We had him 59 or so, I think, in the preseason. For me, I mean, he looked like a top 15 pick when I saw him in week 2. We'll see if that bears itself out.
Fitzy, did you see him as a freshman at ECU? Because he's a junior. He's a true junior, right?
Correct.
What like, I feel like I didn't know him at all as a freshman at ECU, which is not damning, right? Like, I didn't know who Wyatt Langford was either, or Charlie Condon, but who was he as a freshman?
He was good. He was, you know, even I remember seeing him in the fall of his freshman year. He leapt out then. It was maybe more like 89 to 92-ish at that point, with really good feel for a changeup and some funk and a fast arm, and you knew there was more in the tank. But just year over year, spring over spring, he got better and better. You know, it's just he's a beast now. You know, it really is.
So Seif, I'm gonna offer a conspiracy theory. I don't know why I'm on conspiracy theories this year, but so I'm gonna your two volunteers that you mentioned. So Gavin Keelan had 7 walks last year in 255 plate appearances. 7, like that's craziness. And this year he's already got 16. So like if I'm the Louisville coaching staff, I'm not super excited about that, right? It's like that is so. Like my conspiracy theory would be, I just saw Danny Hurley's interview on 60 Minutes where like a real thing in college baseball right now is that kids start to or a real conspiracy theory, I should say, which is an oxymoron, is that kids start to check out because they know they're transferring. Like the tampering in college baseball will start in the next 4 weeks, and so like. I'm not accusing Gavin Keelan of checking out, but like that would be a conspiracy theory that like, hey, like 2 weeks from now, last year, he knew he was transferring. So you're distracted, right? The other thing would be like, I don't know what to say, Seif. Like he's going to quadruple his walks year over year. I don't like, what do you got on that from a scouting perspective?
Well, I just think he's matured as a hitter, right?
Okay.
I wouldn't say he's changed his swing. I think he's definitely changed what he's swinging at. He's looking to make contact more out front when the swing's a little bit on the upswing where he can pull that ball over the fence as opposed to, what he's done in the past, which was just swing early, right? And just get any pitch, put any pitch in play. But yeah, 16 walks already this season in just 4 weekends with 11 games or whatever. That's unbelievable. His home runs, and we can all accuse of some of us more than others of Lindsey Nelson playing small. But he
know what you're talking about.
He hit 4 home runs in old Minute Maid, right? Like in a pro park. Yeah. So there's no denying the juice is there. There's no denying his approach is different because you can just see it. He has 16 walks and he's hitting for power. So to me, he's gotten stronger. I've said this before. This strength conditioning program at UT is second to none. Yeah. So he's done that, but I think he just got a lot more information he's processing. He's maturing as a hitter, and he's identifying the pitches that he can do stuff with instead of just up there swinging.
Fitzy, in fairness too, I feel like Dan McDonnell and the Louisville coaches have been telling us that Keelan was going to be a star. Yep. It just hadn't fully actualized itself yet.
Right. And it did feel like there was another jump coming as a junior, regardless of where he was. But once he went to Tennessee, I was like, okay, like he's going to have a monster year because that's what hitters do when they go to Tennessee. And that system, that coaching staff obviously deserves just a ton of credit for their ability to develop those guys and get the most out of them. And, again, he was a talented kid. He's a high profile recruit. As you said, they really liked him from the beginning, but boy, do you have a comp for him, Seif?
Oh man, you guys, Rune's always. I should come more prepared for comps. I don't at this point.
That's all right. I was just curious if you had one because I don't yet either. But it's clearly like there's a lot of juice there in a compact package, and so that's cool.
Yeah, Seif, you're gonna take my scouting card from me. Let me just give my philosophy on comps. I like comps because they give people a visual, right? Like college baseball is very big, and the average fan doesn't get to see our players. So like I'm looking for visuals, and I comped Cody Bowker's arm action, not Cody Bowker. I should just actually run with this, but I comped Cody Bowker to Pedro Martinez, Seif. Which, of course, most Vanderbilt Sunday starters do become Hall of Famers. We all know this. But the reason I said is because his arm action does remind me of Pedro. It's like that long, like low release, where the ball just explodes up and in on right-handed hitters. But be that as it may.
And of course, it's just a podcast reality. Even you can couch something as much as you want. Yeah. You can try to say physically, Connor Davis reminds me of Frank Thomas, whatever. It doesn't matter what kind of caveats you put in there. We're all gonna just never let you hear the end of it. You comp Connor Davis to the big hurt, and that's just a fact.
I just need to lean into it instead of fighting it.
All right. Well, so with all that said, now I'll give you a comp I have used in the past. Gavin Lux is probably the comp for Keelan.
That's a great comp.
They're both from Wisconsin, right? I saw both play as preps, so there's some similar there. Now, like Gavin Lux is a more true shortstop. Gavin Lux had more power at the same age, where, obviously Killens is still emerging, but that's a similar type. That's in the same ballpark, I guess. Connor Davis, Frank Thomas, if that's the ballpark.
Yeah.
Lux and Killen are in that ballpark.
I'm going to do a thesis on my Connor Davis, Frank Thomas comp. It's I'm going to have data and graphs and charts, but that's not for today's podcast. Because that's going to be fun. Hey, so let's have the Liam Doyle conversation really quickly. I'm making an argument, Seif, that his fastball is the best pitch, the best singular pitch in college baseball. It is debatable. Like, Fitzy and I have had this conversation. There are other elite pitches. I'm blown away by a college pitcher throwing his fastball 70% of the time and still generating like this absurd whiff rate. But I also think, so that's part one is, Doyle's, his rise and this pitch. But I think the other part of it is that, like, the first part is maybe the other part, the rise. Like, nobody had him anywhere near the first round coming into the season. And now, like, I feel like you could have a conversation for him for first overall. I don't think anyone would land there, but I don't think you'd be like, and I want you to fix that if you disagree strongly, Seif. I think you'd have to at least talk about him at 1-1, right?
Yeah, I think people actually are. That's a question, that's a question that has come up, like you said, and I think there is that talk. There's also the talk, is he a reliever, is he a starter? Because how he does it, like our traditional view of like, oh, well, he's got to do it fairly easy and he's got to have a clean delivery and arm action and whatever. That's a starter type, like the Mark Pryor, right? Back when we were younger Runes, that was Mark Pryor. That's how you need to look, right? But I think that's gone away a little bit today, just with, now you have an opener, right? Now you're running through literally 35 guys on your Major League Baseball roster as pitchers, right? Throughout a season, just with up and down and injuries and everything else, some over 40. So I think that has all changed. So I can see where the argument lies for Liam Doyle being a starting pitcher in the big leagues. He certainly has a strike throwing ability. Like, he throws over 75? No. I think his fastball strike percentage is over 74%, and he's got a whiff rate of 59%, like just stupid numbers. So, and he also has a slider that's a plus pitch too. He's a 2-pitch guy, but so is Chris Sale, right? So a lot of people didn't think Chris Sale would be a starter. A lot of people didn't think Max Scherzer would be a starter. So the list goes on and on and on. But so back to your questions, I think a case can be made for him for 1-1 after 4 weeks. And I think after 4 weeks, if the draft were tomorrow, he'd definitely go in the top 10 picks. Whereas coming into the year, he's probably seen as like an early day 2 guy, like a third rounder ish. And he's risen all the way to the top half of the first round. So he's definitely got some major healing. But these last 8 weeks or 10 weeks are going to be obviously, we've got a long ways to go to July 10th.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, and I guess the reason that I still treat him with a little bit more caution, and again, as I say this as someone who has been talking this guy up for 3 years since he was a freshman at Coastal. I've always liked the physicality, the fastball. He had a split that he used to throw quite a bit that it feels like he's kind of gotten away from, although it looks like he's still maybe thrown it 23 times this year, so which is not a lot, less than 10%. That pitch will show you flashes. I don't know if at some point he starts incorporating that more. So like, I think there are 3 pitches in there, although I think right now it's smart for him, as good as his fastball is, to just kind of simplify it and just pound that fastball and that slider at people. But the caution that I have still is 3 of the 4 teams he shut down, lesser competition, well lesser. And so, yes, he also shut down, was it Oklahoma State, I think? He beat somebody pretty good.
Yeah, Oklahoma State, yeah.
But, like, it gets real in SEC play. And he's the longer-term track record isn't really there, even though he's always thrown strikes, which I've always liked. Like, his strikeout walk rate has always been pretty good. Mm-hmm. And so in the past, I've wondered why he didn't have more success, because he pounds the zone with good stuff. And now it seems like he's figuring it all out. But still, it's not like you've got a 3-year track record of excellence. I mean, he's in his 3rd stop, and this is the first time he's had this kind of, it's not like Jamie Arnold, who was already a stud last year. I mean, there's a longer track record there. So let's see it in SEC play. I still agree with you. Like, he's clearly leapt, into the top half of the first round kind of conversation. But for 1-1, I think we need to hold our horses a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, Seif, this is a scouting question for you. Like, I want to be clear. This is going to come off as me sounding like I'm dinging Liam Doyle. And like, I guess if I'm being really honest, I don't care for the 3-time transfer, right? Like, I don't like, that's not my favorite thing I don't like it in my day job when somebody works for 3 different companies in 3 years. I that makes me anxious, but I get it. Like, everybody's got to live their life and live their career, do what's best for their career. I get all that. But I wonder from a scouting perspective, by the way, I also listened to an interview Liam Doyle did recently, and I'm glad I did it because he's a much, like, he was impressive in that interview. I liked how he talked about feeling some remorse about how his season ended at Ole Miss, because I don't know, Ole Miss's season ended with him giving up a walk-off home run. I didn't realize that. I didn't recall that. And he talked about that, like he owned that. It was very impressive. So anyway, I've come to I have a different perspective on Liam Doyle than I had 4 months ago. But it's a long way of saying this, Seif. He's been in 4 different scouting areas in 4 years. Like, or is he so high profile that who cares? Like, you're talking about the national cross checkers and the scouting director are the people that need to be involved in him, or is that like a thing that he's had 4 different area guys on him in 4 different years, and that gets a little bit mixed?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of different opinions, and there will be a lot of different opinions in that draft room. I mean, he's a New Hampshire kid, so obviously under-scouted. And I've seen the prep baseball video on him when he was a junior, a senior in high school. It's not really video that you'd run to as a scout, right? Like, even if you watch him how he does it now, it's not really like a guy you run to, other than you're running to the 99.5 miles per hour with a 70 grade fastball life and you pound in the zone and a plus slider, right? You're running to that. You're not running to necessarily the athleticism or how he does it. So I don't think as a New England prep, he was probably highly scouted, but certainly, when he went to Ole Miss last year in some high profile games, pitching how he did, and now obviously all the scrutiny now, there's gonna be a lot of opinions. And that's just good for a draft room. Makes for more people knowing the player. But I'm glad you had that great interview with him too, because in my mind, I'm probably thinking the same thing. Like, man, 3 schools in 3 years just doesn't fit in, whatever. But that's reassuring to know that, like, hey, it's really not the case. This kid's sounds like a good man.
Seif, did you scout Blake Snell at all? Like, that's a like, when I watch Blake Snell pitch, he doesn't scream great athlete to me. It feels a little efforty, and I don't know. Is there anything there, or was Blake Snell like this crazy athlete in high school?
I did not see him when he was in high school, so I can't help you there, Runes.
Yeah, I think he's a Washington kid. I think he's from the Pacific Northwest, if memory serves. But anyway, it is what it is. Hey, let me give you guys my riser, and then we'll go to the 2 groups that I think are really jumping forward. Brody Donay is like, I was so checked out on him last year. I watched him strike out 4 times in a game where, like, I was worried he was going to quit baseball after the game. It was 4 of the worst strikeouts you've ever seen. Like, there was no chance he was hitting the baseball that night. So good on you, Brody Donay, for, like, first of all, how he finished the season. He was a real factor for Florida at the end. Like, it was Kaggs and Neely and Ashton Wilson. And is Ashton Wilson the player, or who's the person? Wasn't there a Wilson on the Beach Boys, Fitzy? God, we're really getting pop culture going. You're muted if you're.
Yeah, multiple Wilsons on the Beach Boys.
Okay.
Yes.
Neither of them were outfielders for Florida, though, right?
I don't think either of them were named Ashton either.
Okay, good. Very good. So Brody Donay, Fitzy, what do you got on my guy?
Yeah, I mean, always, of course, we've always liked the raw power. It's enormous. Yeah. Again, another guy that I was buying on him at Virginia Tech, and it didn't quite happen there, and we get a change of scenery, and it didn't really happen right away at Florida either. But I guess, would you call him a post-hype sleeper? I don't know. It definitely, I mean, I'm with you. I need to see more, defensively. Seif, maybe you have something to offer on that. I mean, I think he's got arm strength, but I mean, it's
more than enough arm strength.
Yeah. But other than that, I don't really have a great feel for where he stands defensively, but I'm buying the power bat.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I violated one of my golden rules of scouting, is like, you can't go up and down on a player, right? Like, put him where you like him, and now he can go up and down a little bit, and you need to get him right in the end. But Donay, when I saw him in the Cape 2 summers ago, I mean, 70, almost 80 arm strength, obviously 70, 80 raw power. I'll give him 80 raw power because he can hit a mile. and that body 6'6", 235. He's what they look like on TV, right? He's like the right-handed looking Cags, and you guys know how much I like Cags. But so we bumped him. I think he was one of our top 10, 25 prospects, but 2 years before his draft year, right? So 2 years ago, we were ranking these guys, and we left him out of the top 100 this year. He wasn't even in it. So, I mean, that's our own mistake right there. But, I mean, if you just look at his strikeout rate was 39% last year. Like, you cannot, like, that's not transferable at all. That barely survives in college without the power that he has. So he's got it all the way. He's drilled all the way down to just under 16%. But just like Fitty said with Liam Doyle facing the competition, Donay hasn't exactly faced the best high caliber arms at this point. He's faced some good ones, but nothing like he's going to see on Friday in Knoxville and then for the next 10 weeks after that. So it'll be interesting. It'll be if he's really made the adjustment. One thing I have noticed is he has adjusted his stance. So you remember how Cag's front foot was in the front of the box on the white chalk, back leg was in the back. I mean, it was the entire box spread. That's what Donay has now done. So he's simplified his lower half. It's just hands and rotate. And obviously it's helped his strike zone judgment, helps what he's swinging at. It's helped his power. It's helped everything. But again, week 5, SEC opening weekend, a lot more will be seen here shortly.
Yep, he is something. Hey, before we do the final part, I want to take a quick break and say thank you to Tecovas Boots. If you love our game, you know that smell, the one that brings you right back. Fresh cut grass, a broken-in glove made with real leather. It's exactly what you get with Tecovas Boots. They're made for baseball people, whether you've been wearing boots your whole life or you're picking up your first pair. With over 200 steps of craftsmanship, they're built to last, feel great right out of the box, and look even better. And as David Seifert always says, anywhere worth going is worth going in good boots. Find your pair today at Tecovas. So I know you've said that many times, Seif. I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due.
Well, I kind of stole it from Fitty. Like I steal a lot of things from Fitty. I stole that line from Fitty because I know he's an everyday boot wearer. So.
Everyday boot wearer. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah. Otherwise, what are you doing? Fitzy, so I'm going to give you two choices. To me, the two biggest groups that have emerged in this draft class are left-handed pitchers, who we've been talking about, and then middle of the field players, but I would really say shortstops. Like, now I know Justin LeBron's at 26, but man, what a year it's been for shortstops so far, especially from a prospecting standpoint. I was teasing our good friend Chris from Louisville, Chris Burke, like, if I could find a way to buy 100 shares of Justin LeBron, Jenny, Rooney, and me are in. Like, we maybe make it 200 shares. Like, what a joke. But go wherever you – I don't want to steer the jury, Fitzy. Wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I already bought all the LeBron shares last year, so you're way too late. They're not for sale. Listen, I got to take a victory lap on Marek Houston, don't I?
Yes, you do.
Listen,
we fought. That was a fight in the preseason.
We actually had an extended conversation, Houston versus LeBron for first team preseason All-American. I don't think there was a wrong answer because they're both tearing it up. LeBron obviously is tearing it up. He's got 11 home runs. He's an elite defender, but Marek Houston's numbers are also bonkers. And he's just, made an insane leap year after year, twice now, from freshman year to sophomore year. And then, as Tom Walter told us in the fall, he's made this just as big a leap or bigger from sophomore year to junior year, which is nuts. I just think the bat and the power have come and are continuing to get better. We know he's an elite defender, has been since his freshman year when, he was playing every day for a Final Four team despite hitting 200. It's because he's that good of a defender, and now he's hitting at a high level. And so we had him 13th in the preseason. I think I was even higher than that. I mean, for me, he was the top shortstop out there. I had him above Arquette and Curley. We'll see how it all shakes out. Long way to go. There's a lot to like about Arquette and Curley, but I mean, as far as shortstops go, I don't know that Curley's a long-term shortstop. I think Arquette, despite the fact that he's huge, probably winds up at third down the road, but I think, there's a chance for him to play short the way he moves. And, but Houston's a true shortstop that also is hitting, and it just looks different. And so that's the guy that he's 13th on our list heading into the preseason. Like, he could be a top 5 pick for me. And I know that maybe, I don't know if the whole scouting community is there, because even in the preseason, I had conversations with scouts who shared maybe Seif's reservations about the bat a little bit. Seif was not on an island there. That was a very popular opinion. I just think the scouting community is going to catch up before too long that the bat is actually arrived.
Seif, what's your take? I want to ask you about. I want to come back to Wehiwa, Aloy versus Dean Curley in a second, Seif. But let's I'd love for you because I think Fitzy's making a good point. Like, I think everybody in the scouting community's really got to come to terms with what they think about Marek Houston, because it is like his trajectory is something.
Yeah, I mean, Fitty broke his shoulder, I think, patting himself on the back after the opening weekend. Houston had 3 home runs and 9 or 10 RBI opening weekend, right? I think he was like 11 for 14 or something ridiculous. 11 for 14 with 13 RBIs and 3 home runs. So out of the gates, Marek Houston was like his guy, and I mean, deservedly so. You want to see, like, I get great gratification out of not being right, but like seeing these guys improve. Like, I'd rather have them improve and them all be first rounders than me look good. I really would. So I was super pumped. The only downside for Houston right now is his exit velocities are the same as last year. So he's hit all these home runs, but he's not hitting the ball any harder. And coming into the year, you could have classified his raw power as 30 and maybe 40 present if you like him, just based on his exit velocities, right? Which were hover around 105, which is 30 or 40. So, but I mean, yeah, he's a superior defender with a plus arm. He's improved every year. Now, if those exit velocities jump, like if he's in the 108-ish by the end of the year, 109, then yeah, let's go. Let's top half the first round. No question. Just take him where your club likes him, right? He's the top half of the first rounder for me. But until he maybe gets into that range, I'm not as high as Fitty, but Fitty's been right and I've been wrong before. So let's go. That's a good one to talk about.
It's going to be fun. Hey, let me tee up Dean Curley for you, Seif. That I'm got to police myself on this. Like, I've been beating up Dean Curley a little bit. You know, like, from a college perspective, this dude played every day at shortstop on a college national championship team. That ain't easy, right? Like, I mean, to stand up and be competitive and that, like, for me, Dean Curley is like, he's going to third base the second he signs a professional contract, in my opinion. And, you know, I reserve the right to be wrong there. And I just think Wehiwa Aloy is, I feel like he's in the process of exploding this year, but now I've really steered the jury. What say you, Seif?
As far as sticking at shortstop or long term, yeah, Aloy would be my choice. And I used to think in the fall, I thought maybe both of them could do it. And again, I'm going to Knoxville for my first spring look at Curley. Obviously, I've seen him every year. He's a sophomore now, but I've seen him, you know, all in the past. But I think just what he's done, I mean, he has like 6 errors and 40 some chances. He's fielding below 900. And it's not all about fielding percentage, but it kind of is, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know he's played a little bit of third base already. Tennessee's got 4 shortstops on the roster, and 3 are freshmen or sophomores, so they're loaded there anyway. But I think Curley's answering those questions. Can he stay there or not? I think he's already answering those, you know, because he's played every game on turf, right?
Yep.
So, so long term, yeah, I think Curley does go to third, and I'm with you. Maybe you don't put him. I wouldn't put him there on day one, but because you're not going to draft him in the first round and move him to third base, I just don't think that's logical. But I think back to the Aloy comparison is, I'm starting to believe in Aloy. You know, I haven't seen him live this spring yet. I will. I have seen him live many times in the past, including this past fall when they hosted Oklahoma State. But he is getting better there, and he certainly has the arm strength to stay there. So, I don't know. I forget what your question was, but I think Aloy stays there. Curley doesn't. I do want to speak about one more shortstop. Can I throw another riser out there? A plus raw power guy, plus arm strength guy, average defender, and we've really kind of overlooked him too, is Alex Lodise. Is it Lodise or Lodise from Florida State? His cousin's at Georgia Tech. So I think this is a guy that's risen. I think we had him 5th, 6th round in the preseason. To me, he's like a 3rd rounder, maybe even if he can keep his strikeout rate down. I think he's even rising into day one, certainly the tail end of day one, you know, 2nd round. But I mean, he's a 111, 112 exit velocity guy, which is plus power. He has plus arm strength. I think he needs to make the everyday play better and maybe expand upon his range a little bit. But if you look at Twitter, Florida State's Twitter, you'll see a play he made from deep in the hole, a Derek Jeter jump and throw, nailed the runner at first base. And I don't want the runner ran down the line to compare, but it was an amazing play. So that leads me to believe he can stick at shortstop. So now if you got a plus power, plus arm strength guy that can stick at shortstop and he's hitting 444 with like 6 home runs, that's a guy that we need to talk more about too. That is going to be playing his way up draft boards as well.
Fitzy, I always felt like Faro was the bigger name when they transferred in. Is that fair?
Faro, I think, had maybe more of what I would consider a projectable body, a little kind of a longer frame. It felt like there was maybe more raw power, but that Lodise, I think it's Lodise, but I don't know for sure either.
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up.
I think, it was the better defenders why he wound up at shortstop. They came in together. It was a competition at short. Lodise became the guy there. And I feel like it's just probably a better swing, more repeatable, better hit tool. And so, yeah, I think Seif's right. I think Lodise has kind of separated himself. And what about his cousin? Is his cousin, right? Kyle is his cousin at Georgia Tech?
At Georgia Tech, yep.
Which that's a guy that I know you're high on, right, Simon? We liked him on the Cape last year, but he was making that transition from, I think, D2 to D1, and it looks like he's handled that very well. He's more tooled than any of these guys.
Yeah, he's handling it well, especially defensively. I think in his case, his defense a little ahead of his offense, and I think obviously Alex's offense a little over defense. So, but yeah, both are prospects for 2025 certainly.
Yeah, Lodise, you nailed it, Fitzy. Lodise. D-E-S at the end. Lodise. Okay, cool. Hey, Seif, I'm going to read off the left-handers that you wrote about. Like, this is remarkable, the left-handed pitching. Like, we just had this big prospect conversation. We didn't even get to Jamie Arnold, but let me read some of the lefties that you wrote about. And by the way, shortstops, if you're an Oregon State fan, Iva Arquette, I think I speak for the whole group that we love him. That's a slam dunk first rounder. And, like that, he certainly belongs. It's almost like we're not talking about him because he's the person that we're most certain of. Yep. Let's do the lefties. We talked about Liam Doyle, Zach Root, Jamie Arnold. Obviously, is going to be a top 10 pick. Ryan Prager of A&M has been great. All 3 lefties. A&M, their season's struggling, but Prager and Miles Patton and Justin Lampkin have all been awesome. Cade Anderson at LSU, J.D. Thompson at Vandy. Joe, this is a name that if you're kind of more of like an SEC, ACC fan, Joe Jerwa, which is spelled D-Z-I-E-R-W-A at Michigan State, is like this 6'8" lefty who's been electric. Joe Jerwa. And then you've got Joe Vellini at Florida State, who's a transfer from, I think, USF. Jared Spencer at Texas has been very interesting. I might come back to him. Pico Khan at Mississippi State. Pierce Coppola at Florida, unfortunately, is hurt. Hunter Elliott's made a really awesome comeback. Jacob Frost. Who is Jacob Frost pitching for?
Yeah, Kansas State. That's one that I saw. I've seen him twice, and he was good both times, but really good against Arkansas at Globe Life. It's a 6'4", very physical left-hander. He's got one of those fastballs that plays up. It's 91, 94, maybe touch of 5, but it plays above that. It really gets on you. He can pitch off that, but he's got a good changeup, his firm changeup he throws with conviction that's effective. He got feel to mix in a slider and a curve. So I saw a 4-pitch guy. It was a 7.5 ERA last year, Runes, as a JUCO transfer at K-State. But he's just kind of figured out the pitchability piece and really made a big jump. And I think he's definitely a rising prospect.
So give me one of your lefties that's on that list that you want to talk about. Don't take Jared Spencer, please, because I would like to talk about him. I saw him in person.
He's an Indiana State guy. That's my Midwest. I have rights to him.
That's right. I mean, I'm renting.
And all the guys you named, I mean, certainly they're on there for a reason, right? But there's so many other lefties that I like that aren't even on there, like a Ben Jacobs from ASU, for example.
Yes.
I love that guy. He's kind of maintaining, right? He hasn't really moved up or moved down. He's still probably for me, I'm high on him. I like him. I'd take him somewhere in the second round because it reminds me of the guy from Florida International University, 4 or 5 years ago, the lefty.
Oh, not McClanahan. Are you thinking about McClanahan?
No, he was South Florida. This is Florida International. He's with the Cleveland Indians, and they had 2 pitchers by the exact same
Logan
name.
something. Logan
Allen. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So Jacobs reminds me of Logan Allen. So I know I'm supposed to talk about somebody on the list, but I mean, we even got like Connor Ware from LSU, and I really like the guy at Oklahoma, although he's struggling a little bit right now. Cade Crossland. I mean, so there's a load of other Zane Adams, Folger Boas, who I know is a Fitty favorite. You know, there's so many other really good lefties out there. I could have kept going on that, but had to shut it down at some point. But that doesn't mean there's not a lot more out there. Landon Beetlejuice from Arkansas, right? Like there's another one. But anyway, to your question, and I cannot have Jared Spencer, huh? Let me go over these real quick again. Well, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna pick. We've already talked about Zach Root. We talked about Doyle. I'm just gonna pick Mason Peters.
Oh,
I saw him as a JUCO guy in Texas. Now he's at DBU. And I just saw him on the live stream. I did the home command center, as you guys know, this past weekend. And so I was flipping through games, and Mason Peters was a guy I wanted to watch. And all of a sudden, there he is. He's throwing in relief for Dallas Baptist. If you see this guy's curveball, it's a Barry Zito, like maybe not quite as big as Barry Zito's, but it is a big, enormous curveball that he is landing over 50% of the time for a strike. And if he's doing that with that big of a breaker, that's pretty good. But I think as it warms up, gets a better feel, he's going to start landing it maybe closer to 60% of the time, and then it's going to become just an unhittable pitch, which when he does land it, it isn't hittable. It's high whiff, but he just has to put it in the zone. Plus, he throws 92 to 95. Now he's relieving for Dallas Baptist. In a lot of places outside of maybe Arkansas, LSU, and Tennessee, he probably would be a starter. Or even Dallas Baptist, because they're pretty loaded on the hill too. But Mason Peters is a really guy I really like, maybe not for the top 2 or 3 rounds, but certainly as a quality 5th, 6th round draft pick, just on the curveball alone.
Before you talk about Spencer, I just want to interject because Seifert reeled off some other lefties that could have been on this list. Does Cade Obermiller fit in that for you as well? I know Patrick had some good stuff on him in his piece, Patrick Ebert, in our site last week, but I'm curious. It sounds like he's starting to kind of maybe put it all together.
Yeah, certainly. I saw him opening weekend last year when they were down in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah, and
he was good, not great. I mean, he showed the velocity, but his command was everywhere. Kind of just like Marcus Morgan that same weekend. Like his command was everywhere. Just really the whole Iowa pitching staff last year, their command was everywhere. But anyway, I saw Cade this fall at Iowa when they hosted Nebraska Omaha, and the stuff was dialed back a little bit. It was more 92, 93, but he had some sink, and he was throwing strikes, attacking hitters. Has always had that good slider. I think if he can kind of uptick the stuff a little bit and keep the command that he's shown already, then I think he's in the same class, 3rd, 4th-ish round. But as far as being in the same class as Mason Peters, yes, certainly Cade Obermiller belongs in that talk.
Got it.
Love it. I'll finish Jared Spencer. I'm always skeptical of these guys. Seif, like he's a max effort reliever. And Indiana State actually tried to make him their Friday starter last year when Jacob Pruitt went down, and it was okay. It didn't go as well as it did the year before. But I'll tell you, like seeing Jared Spencer in Vegas at the Peak Events tournament, he was 90. We saw 94s and 95s for 6 innings. Like he's strong. Like I didn't realize how strong he is. And the other thing is he naturally throws his fastball glove side into righties. So it's a very uncomfortable at bat for a right-handed hitter, even though Spencer's lefty. I think I would actually, if I was coaching against him, I think I would hit lefties because everything's away from you. The reason I say that is because the best pitch he showed that night was a banger of a slider. It was 87 to 89 all night. It was tons of 7s and 8s. And for the right-handed hitters who were just getting torn up by this 94, 95 mile an hour fastball in their hands, they had no chance against the slider. I think it was like 15 whiffs against that slider that night because they're just, they're getting the bat head going for fastball, and it was just disappeared on him. So, the one thing about Spencer is that his command will just vanish on him. Like he's very relieverish in that regard, that like he will just be cruising and then 8 pitches of no command. And then he kind of finds it again. But, if you're a starter, that's kind of too late. You just kind of wasted 8 bullets and now you've got a problem probably on your hands. But man, he's, as a prospect, like I'm watching him thinking worst case scenario, he's a big league reliever. So Seif, you probably have a ton of tape or a ton of, you've probably seen him a bunch.
Yeah, he's a Michigan prep, and obviously went to Indiana State his first 3 years. So his freshman year, he showed stuff similar to what you saw in Vegas and what I saw opening weekend this year at Global Life, up to 98, sitting 5 to 7. I thought he had two distinct breakers in his cutter. I called it what you said is 87, 89. I call that a cutter because he also showed a sweeper against lefties. It was more of an 85 sweeper. But when he tried to start last year at Indiana State, I went over, I think it was the end of April, early May. I went over there for one of their last Missouri Valley Conference series, and it just wasn't a good look. I mean, he was out after, I think he was out in the second. He came out in the first, labored, came out in the second, labored. I think he walked 5. It was 90-93. The breaking ball wasn't sharp. And I walked away thinking, man, something's not right. Like he's injured. He's not feeling well, whatever, because that is not the same Jared Spencer I saw the year before as a sophomore. But what I saw opening weekend at Global Life this year for Texas was against Louisville was lights out. It's like, it was first round stuff, take away the age. And as you said, he's got that control that comes and goes. I think he's got that extra I call it a little dice roll, right? He's got the longer arm action. He's playing with some dice in the back. And then if that's clicking, it's nails. But when it's a little bit off, the release is a little bit off, and that's when he goes for 8 pitches. So, but yeah, I saw first round stuff for sure in Texas. Just stuff, not a 22-year-old, not the other things that kind of go with it. But he is the number 1 senior on my board. Any position, arm, whatever. Right now, he's the number 1 senior on my draft board.
I love it. Hey, let's wrap it there, boys. We're going to do these prospect pods once a month, just check in on what we've seen. We've got a lot of data points that are piling up. Fitzy, Seif, I'm going to ask you a broad scouting question in a second that's going to apply to where you're going this weekend. Fitzy, tell us what your tentative plans are this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to make a little SEC road trip, I think. Start off in Columbia. Oklahoma is in town. A little Kyson Witherspoon versus Petrie. I think that'll be a fun matchup to bear down on. Probably will head to Auburn on Saturday. Maybe double up. I know Etheridge is going to be in Athens. Jack DeLongchamp may also be in Athens on Saturday. Might be 3 of us, but I'll probably just skip on through to Auburn they play the nighttime on Saturday. And then TBD Sunday, maybe I hit Athens, maybe I stay in Auburn. We got Vandy is in town. So we got a top 25 matchup, Vandy and Auburn. First weekend of SEC play. There's a lot on the menu, and it's just, I thought about making a Mississippi run too. There's some good stuff in the state of Mississippi this week, but you got to make some choices. Show some plate discipline. That's
right. Yeah, you got to lay off sometimes. Fitzy, when you go to Founders Park in Columbia, do you bring your biased sign, or do you you don't even need to bring it? They're just it's assumed.
I should just tape it to my backpack, just so that there's no ambiguity about it.
Yes, biased. I like it.
Does that fit over your Marek Houston jersey?
Oh wow.
That's uncalled for. I would never.
I'll put myself. Penalty box, red card.
That's right.
We go.
That's right. Yellow card, David Seifert. Seif, so here's my question. You're going to be in Knoxville for Florida at the Vols. And my question is, how do you scout? Any tips for scouting when you're in a game with that much that you've got to bear down on? I mean, you got to bear down on basically every Tennessee arm's like a top 50 pick. Right. They've like a dozen of them. And then you've got their position player group. And then you've got Donay and you've got Liam Peterson. I mean, it's not like Florida's devoid of prospects. How do you do that? How do you bear down on so many players at once? Any tips?
Well, hopefully I get 3 games of good weather to bear down. So it doesn't have to come all at once, but no, it's a good point. I mean, I'll just go back to Alex Lodise, right? I went and saw Alabama play at Florida State this fall, and just fall scrimmage, and they all have numbers, you have rosters and stuff, but I won't say I whiffed on Lodise, but he certainly wasn't at the top of my list when I left there, right? So it's kind of similar. You go, I'm going to Knoxville, Tennessee against Houston, or Tennessee against Florida. Good guys at every position. Just got to do what you can. Yes, it makes it a little more difficult, but I will say it's not nearly as difficult as 8 teams at the old Minute Maid for Shriners, back in the day, or even 6 teams at Global Life gets a little challenging when you're just there for 12, 14 hours. It's enjoyable, but it's tough to walk away and remember everything that you saw. So I'll certainly do my best. I'll enjoy it with 10,000 screaming Vol fans.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome. Well, yeah, SEC play. What a glorious, nothing better in college baseball than when SEC kicks off the 10-week gauntlet. I know there are people out there that do get SEC fatigue at times in college baseball, and I understand that, but I feel very comfortable saying there's nothing like their regular season. 10 straight weeks of SEC baseball. It's just absolutely glorious. So, Fitzy and Seif, great to see you guys. Enjoyed it very much. I love these little combos we have. And that's it. Everybody have a great week. Enjoy the opening, week 5. Enjoy weekend 5. And we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.